So it's been a while since the last video, and I just want to do an update on my zero maintenance 29 gallon. So I was doing, basically zero maintenance for months and months after having set this up. Zero water changes. I checked the nitrate level, and I would say that it was extremely high. It was in the well over a couple hundred, I'd imagine. Um, and I said that because let's say it was completely red and you couldn't get an accurate indication, but you did a 50% water change, and then you tested the um, the nitrate after that, and it was like maybe not quite red, like in the dark orange, let's say. And so then you could start saying to yourself, okay, well then it must have been in the range of like maybe 150, 200, and you knocked it down to like just under 100, maybe even in the 50s, or maybe 75 or something like that. Now, apparently my fish can take quite a bit of nitrate. One of the things I've noticed when the nitrate's high, and then after I change the water, and this is not every single time, but I mean, this is just me kind of just observing and not really knowing exactly, is I'll see the fish working their mouths a lot, all of them, right? And it's not oxygen, because I know I was running air and stuff like that. However, if I run air, it seems like they're able to tolerate higher nitrate than when I'm not running air. So, yeah, I mean, I guess there's ways of getting your fish to go into a higher nitrate. Um, I I would say that they're probably suffering. I mean, the fact that they're working their mouths like that, and I'm not sure if this is just coincidental or has absolutely nothing to do with the nitrate, but I'd imagine it's probably uncomfortable for them to be in a high nitrate state, even if they can survive it. So now my goal was, okay, I still want to do the zero maintenance, and this tank has minimal maintenance simply because I kind of reduced some of the lighting. The light that I actually prefer to have on this tank, I don't think contributes a lot to algae and plant growth, and it's kind of the yellow moonlight on the Higer. I think it's very nostalgic. It almost looks like an incandescent light, um, and it's plenty. It's not the light that you see now, but this looks like the daylight in its dimmed either twilight phase, or the hikers are weird. They just like self dim, not a part of the program, so I don't know what that is. But anyway, so yeah, I have reduced lighting. You can't. It's not picking it up too much on camera, but the water's cloudy. So what I did is I kind of freaked out, and I disconnected. I was running the under gravel connected to my 10-watt flue vault, and so that was heavy biologic filtration. And part of my freak out was to remove all biologic filtration in an attempt to get um, the plants to digest the ammonia right off the bat instead of going into the nitrogen cycle. Um, and I think there was a little bit of that. So I've been testing with my new setup, and it does seem like the nitrates develop a little slower. It's not definitive. I haven't like really ran a definitive experiment to say that for sure. It's just like my instincts are telling me with the reduced biologic filtration, um, and I don't know if I've established any anoxic at all in the gravel bed. Um, I could do a test today and find out what's been happening as far as like, am I producing nitrate slower? And that would either be because I am having an anoxic condition in the gravel, which you can't tell on camera, but the back of the gravel bed's really thick. It actually goes up here you're only seeing a few inches. In that corner, it doesn't look like it, but that's a good 2 inches in that corner there. And most of it is pushing 2 inches in the front. And in the back, I would say it's got to be 4 to 5. From the bottom of the glass, I would say maybe 5, definitely 5, maybe even pushing it upward a little 6 in some of the sections there. And I have a mixed kind of bed there. I know you're seeing the gravel, but I actually have soil bags all in the back there. But I do think the clay bed is probably the best way to develop the anoxic. And I'm going to set a tank up like that at some point. I really like the 29-gallon tanks. They're just, it's almost like the perfect size as far as like a canvas. You know, like those dimensions. If you think about it, is represent. You know, it's about what the eye can take in. And so I think it just fits those dimensions. I know it's not ideal. Like a 75-gallon is definitely an ideal ecosystem. But as far as like just the presentation of a 29-gallon for a, visual perspective, I think those are really nice. Anyway, okay, so what I've been doing is I've gotten my water changes down to maybe 1.5 months, maybe 2 months. I do maybe a 50%, at least 5 gallons, or half, or about 10 gallons, which is, even though this is a 29-gallon, it actually winds up being about half, maybe just less than half of a water change there. Believe it or not, the aquascape takes up quite a bit of real estate from that 29-gallon. And you're probably working with something like maybe 22 gallons or 24 gallons out of that 29. And that brings the nitrates down to about a 50 at this point, which means I'm not much above 100 in a lot of my tanks at this point, with these like really spaced out water changes over a course of 1 to 2 months, maybe even pushing something more than that. I'm kind of watching the fish's mouths and seeing at what point are they huffing and puffing, and that's kind of a good indicator for me to want to do the water change on their behalf. Maintenance is minimal. When I do the water change, I clean the front of the glass. Like I said, I reduce some of the lighting. That basically keeps the plants from growing very, very slowly. What little bit of beard algae, the green algae you see there, up there. At one point that was more, and I just kind of pluck it out. I kind of like the way it's growing on that. It's actually kind of nice, and there's a little moss ball up there, which started developing over the last few weeks. Kind of just leaving it because it's not really hurting anybody, and it's not really spreading. So yeah, and I never gravel vac or anything like that. The under gravel's still there. I just capped one end of it and left one end open, and I'm running a 3-watt Aqueon, cheapie from the pet store, with a huge filter sponge on it, and so no biologic. I got a plant inside of it. And so I still have my cool video that I want to do. I went through a little bout of depression after school. I don't know what's happened. I haven't been able to get my wheels turning, and so this video is just almost like let me just do something. I appreciate you guys watching my other 29-gallon video. That's got a lot of views. So that's kind of why I'm doing another 29-gallon video. Apparently you guys like that. So just to state, my long-term goals are 0 water change, which I think is an enigma, and I could do a whole nother video on that. It may be a myth to have an anoxic filtration or at least very challenging to pull it off. I'm not completely giving up on it, but I think the circumstances in which an anoxic uh, digestion takes place is rare. It's a fine line. Like you really got to set it up. Um, there's a whole chemistry thing involved, and I think setting up the conditions may not happen. I think plants, heavy planting, and maybe water floating plants, between floating plants and zero biologic filtration in the tank the best you can, you may just pull the ammonia right out. And then whatever nitrate you do produce, maybe the plants will take it up. But uh, other than that, you're not doing it unless you're setting up a very specific filter under very specific conditions. I haven't seen anybody even coming close to that. Maybe the saltwater digesters, but they got minimal fish. I mean, I don't know how they're dealing with it. I know there are anoxic claims in the saltwater community, like filters, um, but I think people struggle with them. I think they're hit or miss, and I think long-term sustainability requires a lot of maintenance, and they probably ultimately end up doing a water change. And you're talking 3 or 4 fish in a huge tank, and you know, they're probably not heavy feeding. So, you know, I think anoxic is an enigma for sure. Um, but my long-term goals was to reduce electricity. Once I realized that my biologic wasn't doing anything and my heavy filtration wasn't doing anything, I went, oh my God, I'm spending a ton of money on electricity, which I don't even know if it's true or not, but I just figured, it, you know, it's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and it's, I can either have 3 watts or I can have like 20 something watts. And so I was like, okay, 3 watts, considering that it's not doing anything anyway. But one side effect now is the water's cloudy. And it hasn't been super cloudy, but today there's a haze, which I never really did see with the heavy filtration, particularly my Magnum polisher, which really does a really good job. And the polisher you don't even need to run 24 hours a day. You can run it just for a few hours a day. My only concern was that the water sits in that filter and might get a little stagnant and could potentially breed some unwanted. So that was kind of the reason why I was like, oh, should I just put it on a timer and just cycle it a few hours a day to keep the water relatively fresh? And I think that's my new step, is I'm just going to get a timer on my 35 watt Magnum polisher, and that'll solve the problem of, cloudy water, not using too much electricity, and, unnecessarily running that thing. And then my other thing is I don't like the filters in the water column. I was going for a um, zero noise aquarium where the fish didn't have to listen to all of the filtration, whether it's the bubbles, which makes a lot of noise, from the air stones, or the motor being inside the filter. I was really wanting to get a zero noise filter, water column, low electricity, but not compromise on filtration or oxygenation. And so that's kind of my next step now, and I have ideas and theories on how to pull that off, which I'll do some more videos about. But yeah, so I'm still doing minimal maintenance, but I wouldn't call it zero maintenance. But it's definitely in the realm of my lifestyle, which is just every few months I'm doing a water change, and it seems like the nitrates are in reason. I reduced feeding, but not that much. And yeah, the plants aren't growing, so I'm never trimming plants. That's pretty rare at this point. And I'm never really cleaning the glass. I clean the glass mostly to get rid of the biologic component, because I'm trying to get the ammonia taken up by the plants and not by the biologic activity in there, the bacteria. But yeah, so that's just a quick rundown. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope to get back in the swing a little bit better. And I appreciate you still hanging with me. All right. Talk to you later. Thank you.